don't want people to spend a lifetime on welfare. Those things don't make me either really a liberal or a conservative, put me right in the middle. And right now, the middle is being better served by the Democratic Party.
I see Romney's campaign where I believe it will be much better for the middle class family. He encourages us with self-initiative and working, but we get to keep more of what we work for. We have had to live like we don't have resources. Clipping coupons, shopping very carefully, making food from scratch.
Those middle-class voters are feeling the squeeze, and that is putting their political allegiance up for grabs. Neil King has been talking to families in a swing county of the most important swing state, Hamilton County, Ohio. Neil, good morning.
Good morning, Rolf.
Let's set the stage here a little bit. You publish a chart in your story that shows back in the 80s, upper-income Americans took home about 34% of total U.S. income. Today, it's 46% or so. Now compare that, if you look at this chart, with middle-income families whose share has gone from near 60% to 45%. In other words, the rich getting richer. So, Neil, talk about the impact that's having on the voters you're talking to.
You know, what was interesting about this project, we decided to go to one block of one town in Ohio, Norwood, Ohio. Used to be a big GM factory there that made the Camaro. Used to be a lot of other big manufacturing companies there. And the block we picked was so ripe with meaning. I mean, these were people who were living in houses way bigger than you would expect. Houses basically built for the upper crust of Norwood a century ago. One of the families was living only in the third floor of that otherwise mansion. And people, all of whom who have gone through a lot of strife and a lot of struggle over the last 4 years, losing jobs, losing health insurance coverage, and all of whom had gone through very interesting political migrations over their lifetime, almost all of them basically having gone from one side and then over time finding themselves on the other. And either they were really strong Democrats who had then become very strong Republicans or vice versa. And it's a story, I think, and an interesting one about it's not so much that the middle class right now is up for grabs in a huge way, in a very molten way, because most people have decided where they're going to vote in this election coming up. But it's about the movement, sort of gradual movement, and the difficulty of ever pinning down this huge class of voters, in part because they really get the biggest blows from the economy as the economy changes.
Mm-hmm. That family, that was an interesting tidbit from your story, that family that lives on the third floor of that mansion, in effect to keep their utility bills down. And so, by the way, what's interesting here is even though the middle class is feeling this squeeze, it's not, that isn't pushing them either to the Democrats or over to the Republicans, is it?
That's not. You know, the one thing that was, I thought, very interesting, and you heard it in Lupe Hoyt's little clip there, the woman who spoke second, and even Bruce, who spoke first, talking about this sort of anxiety about the growing welfare class. And one thing that you really felt palpably there in that particular town was this concern that people were just becoming too reliant on government. And partly because the people I talked to were representative of a particular generation in part, but that's a concern even among these people who themselves are very concerned about their Social Security, are very concerned about paying for their own health care. They're also, and in some cases, even more concerned about what they see as the kind of growing role of government and the ebbing kind of self-reliance of a lot of the people that they see around them.
Did you ask them, those voters in particular, that may be relying on government programs, that don't like the idea of them? Do they want to give them back?
Yeah, one of the things that was fascinating is the family, Ted and Linda Pruz, who actually were in that big house and have gone through a lot of travails over the last few years. Their main source of income now is an apartment building, about half of the tenants of whom are getting government assistance, Section 8 and things like that. So basically the Pruzes are, though, very dismissive of government aid, and anything being given to people are themselves receiving that, if only at once removed, and we're very stricken by that, and it was itself a sort of source of angst within their household that a lot of what they were living on was government money coming to them through another source.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the way that this is translating into polls, we'll get to Ohio in a minute, but really the race is tightening up dramatically. We have new poll results. The Wall Street Journal has new poll results today from Nevada, also from Colorado, that shows that really we're tightening up here. That is now President Obama's up 3 points in Nevada, and in Colorado, President Obama and Mitt Romney are tied at 48%. Now, that's tighter than where it's been, correct, Neil?
It is. I mean, we've seen other really tight elections, needless to say. 2000 was crazy down to the wire. 2004, similarly so. But what we've not seen in our lifetime really is a race now, less than 2 weeks away from the actual election day, as back and forth as this one is right now in national polling. I mean, it's really an extraordinary thing. The way that Mitt Romney has come back in the last several weeks is itself pretty unprecedented. And all signs are, when you look state by state at the states that matter, is that this is going to be a true cliffhanger. I mean, I'm in Ohio now. Everyone knows that could be the decisive state. But all the other states that matter a lot, and you just talked about two of them, Colorado and Nevada, are also really tight. Nobody's really put any of the 9 or 10 swing states in his pocket and said, okay, this is now off the table. I own this state. Every one of these states is still up for grabs.
Briefly, Neil, we've got time for about 20 more seconds. You're in Ohio. Let's not forget Ohio. What are polls showing there?
The polls here are still showing this stubborn, advantage for Obama. So he's still up a couple of points, and it's the biggest challenge that the Romney camp has. We have a good story on that in the paper today on the attempts by the Romney camp to turn things around here.
Okay, Neil, thanks so much for joining us this morning.